Lewis Hamilton has sealed each of the last two Drivers' Championships in Mexico, and the British legend is in with a shot of becoming just the second man to achieve a sixth Formula One world title this weekend in Mexico. There's also a fascinating midfield battle that's nearing its conclusion, which we'll get into on today's show. Hosting today will be me, George Howson, and joining me are sports journalist Louis Edwards.
Hello.
And multimedia journalist Ruby Price.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us on the show. So, Mercedes with the win last time out in Japan, but it's fair to say around a track that's got a massive long straight for its start-finish straight, that Ferrari potentially could have the advantage coming into this one, Ruby.
Yeah, I was thinking before we started this as to whether, who's actually going to have the real advantage. And for the past couple of years, obviously, it's been a Red Bull driver that's dominated the circuit. But Ferrari have got a really fast car, and it seems to work again now.
Yeah, and certainly in qualifying as well. Ferrari, I don't know how many poles they've had. I think they've had like 4 or 5 poles in a row now. They got a 1-2 in Japan, but it's the race and the race pace that are letting them down somewhat, isn't it, Louis?
Yeah. Strategy also, it's been pretty poor. But Mercedes just could look after the tyres better. We've seen that all season now, that Mercedes are able to make the tyres last the way they want. So Ferrari are always on the back foot after the lights go out. So it's always good. It's always interesting to see what Ferrari can do, because not always their pace can help them through.
But yeah, so Ferrari with the race pace not being particularly great, but around this track, you mentioned it, Ruby, a Red Bull driver, and one Red Bull driver in particular has dominated the last 2 races, Max Verstappen. He's in with a shot of a hat-trick this weekend, isn't he?
Well, we all thought that for a couple of the last couple of tracks, but the Red Bull race just hasn't really materialised, and that's down to a mixture of collisions or, just Ferrari and Mercedes being unexpectedly quick. But he's got a chance because he's, a somewhat Mexican specialist.
He is. He's very good around that track for sure. Welcome, Mikhail. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Good, thanks.
Yeah, we started without you. You not missed too much, don't worry.
Yeah, thanks.
Sports journalist Mikhail Kataya from Finland, currently in the Netherlands. So if you had, we're not even mentioned Bottas, we mentioned Hamilton's in the shot of a 6th world title this weekend, but how are you feeling about Bottas going to this one? Because he absolutely bossed the race in Japan 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great comeback from him after not having a good form since spring. I don't know. I kind of hope he gets kind of going and picks up a few more wins. But I mean, at the same time, I don't know. He's not in the fight for the championship, so could be that Lewis just comes back and that's the end of it, I guess.
Yeah, and we mentioned that Hamilton had won the last 2 championships in Mexico, albeit it is unlikely this weekend. Hamilton because of the fastest lap rule, Hamilton needs a 78-point lead going into the USGP 78 because of the wins. Yeah, 78 points, and he's 64 at the moment. So that means he has to get a 14-point jump on Bottas this weekend. And honestly, I think it'd be quite unlikely that Hamilton could win this one, because he's not been the best at Mexico over the years, Ruby, despite winning 2 titles there in the last 2 years.
Yeah, precisely. It doesn't seem to be one of his favourite tracks, and in 2017 he collided with Vettel on the start, which meant that it was very much a recovery drive. Last year, I can't really remember what happened last year, but I remember he wasn't on the podium, was he?
Just lack of pace, yeah. He finished 4th, I think, and almost a lap down again, like the year before. Mercedes just not particularly good. I don't know if it's the high altitude or what, but they just seem to struggle around Manos Rodriguez. But yeah, so moving on. So if you had to pick one driver, Louis, who would you go for the win this weekend? Because there's a few definitely in the mix. Maybe even Charles Leclerc. He's going to be fired up after Japan for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say Charles Leclerc. He's just got the bit between his teeth at the moment. He's been screwed out of a couple of races, and
I don't think he helped himself too much in Japan.
Yeah, but I'm sure he's really gonna want to get on the front foot and get a win just to show that he is still number one at Ferrari over Sebastian Vettel. But I wouldn't count Sebastian Vettel out at all. I think he's going to be quick, and we'll just have to see how the Red Bulls do to see how either Max Verstappen or Alex Albon will do.
Yeah, the Red Bulls are definitely in the shot this week, and the dark horses, so to speak, because Verstappen on his day is absolutely unbeatable, and he was absolutely untouchable in the last 2 years. And I think he became last year the first person ever to win the Mexican Grand Prix back-to-back. He could do it back-to-back-to-back, Mikhail.
Yeah, he could. Actually, I like in terms of who's gonna win. Like, I would guess it's either gonna be Charles or Max. I don't think Mercedes is gonna do well, and yeah, as Louis said, like Charles is fired up, but Max has a great history there, so could be the two of them fighting for a win.
Yeah, definitely. So if you had to stick some money on it, Ruby, which you might well do, I don't know if you gamble when it comes to F1, would you say that Hamilton's going to walk away a 6-time world champion from Mexico?
It's possible, but as you said, I think it's highly unlikely. It would require quite a crazy race.
Yeah, it's a 14-point swing, so I think that's effectively, if Hamilton wins, Bottas needs to finish 5th off the top of my head, or lower. And it's possible, but I think it's unlikely Hamilton will win, to be honest. But going further back down the grid, let's go outside the top six drivers. Renault. Now, they're in a fair bit of hot water, let's say, with their regulations, with their supposed brake system that Racing Point have protested about. I haven't heard anything more on that. That's still being investigated, and I think it'll be investigated well into next year. In terms of just like the end of the season. But in terms of pace, Daniel Ricciardo was absolutely on fire in Japan, Louis.
Yeah, he was. We saw a bit of that Renault pace that we saw back in Monza. It was a good race for Daniel Ricciardo. And, if they can have that same straight line pace that they had in Monza, I think they can do some really good, and get really good performance out of this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But it's you never know with Renault.
Yeah, they're very much hit and miss, aren't they? I mean, you have to give McLaren the advantage going into this weekend. Out of those two, or at least able to catch up with them. And if you had to pick a best of the rest driver this weekend, Mikhail, who would you go for?
Probably for Sainz. I think he's a default answer for this one. I don't know whether this would be. Yeah, I can't say whether he would do well. I can't remember his last outings in Mexico, but I still think whether it's gonna he's probably the most likely to get that P7, P6, depending on how crazy of the race it is.
It could well be a mental race as well. It is Mexico, and as well, I've checked the weather forecast. It didn't end up raining in Japan, despite the typhoon they had the day before. It is forecast to rain all weekend in Mexico City. Very British weather forecast. I thought it had it set to default to Huddersfield when I looked, but no, it's Mexico City. It's meant to rain all weekend. So that could definitely spice things up, Ruby, and give Max Verstappen even more an advantage. That Red Bull comes alive in the way.
Yeah, the rain definitely helps neutralise the field, I guess, in terms of pace advantage. And, the Red Bulls have pretty much consistently for the last 10 years gone really quickly in the wet. Going back to, the rest of the field, if it's wet, there's going to be a lot of collisions. There's going to be a lot of points up for grabs for the midfield if, something happens up ahead.
Yeah, we could, a surprise driver on the podium like we did with Kvyat in Germany. Unbelievable. I still can't believe that happened. But yeah, there is a Mexican driver. There was a home driver in this race, Sergio Perez. Thanks to the checkered flag falling and a lap early, he was bailed out and he ended up getting 9th place at Japan. And that makes it 4-point scores in the last 5 races, Louis. He's in a decent shot this weekend, isn't he, at some point?
Yeah, he as I remember, he's done pretty well at his previous home races. I think it's an advantage to any driver to have, your home crowd and your home sort of fans behind you. But, coming off a great run of form and then coming into your home Grand Prix, you expect him to do well and you expect great things. So I think we're going to see a good performance again from Sergio Perez.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that long straight will definitely help the Mercedes engine going down it. But yeah, let's move a bit further down the grid. Well, not a bit further down the grid. That's disrespect to Toro Rosso. They're in a legitimate 6th place in the championship. But I think they'll struggle this weekend to get points, won't they, Mikhail?
Yeah, probably. I don't see that necessarily happening. But I mean, now that you mentioned rain, I think it's going to make a mix-up. I mean, so it's definitely difficult to say. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely got a chance for the rain. That's if it comes, of course. We know what the weather forecast is like in F1. You know, I remember, was it France this year or last year? Like, oh, there's a 20% chance of rain. It's absolutely gleaming sunshine, 40 degrees track temperature, no clouds.
Yeah.
So you never know. You never know. But yeah, the high altitude track at Mexico is an interesting one because although they run Monaco levels of downforce, they actually get, wing angles, but they actually get the downforce levels they do at Monza because of the lack of air they have there. So potentially that could open things up for some other teams. I mean, what about Alfa Romeo? I mean, they're very hit and miss. They're getting there, close to the points, but not that close that recently. I mean, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi well outside the points in Japan. What do you reckon of their chances, Ruby?
Well, for the last couple of races, Alpha have sort of dropped off to an extent, I guess you could say. I think they've been finishing in the bottom half of the field for like the last couple of races. I think based on, just pure pace, they could surprise everyone, but again, it's all speculation really, and no one knows as to whether they're going to, have a revival of their form or etc.
Yeah, I think it could potentially be a case of them kind of shutting up shop and being like, right, let's focus on next year's car because they got the points. They've had a decent year, but they just seem to be dropping further and further down the grid as the season goes. Likewise, Haas, Louis. I mean, it's kind of like Williams in a way. They're a hard one to preview. Mexico not being an easy one on the tyres, but you never know. With some rain, could see Grosjean or Magnussen in the points, albeit pretty unlikely.
I mean, it maybe all depends on qualifying. We've seen time and time again this season Haas being able to get up into the top 10 with their quali pace, but it's just their abysmal race pace sometimes. It just season absolutely drop like a lead balloon. But with the rain, it could, if they are able to secure that sort of top 10 quali place, get into Q3, and then it does rain on the Sunday, that could definitely play into their advantage. Tyre wear isn't so much a thing, and they weren't doing too bad in Germany. So, we don't know what we're going to see, but I think the rain could make it an interesting weekend for Haas. Otherwise, I think tyre deg around Mexico isn't brilliant. It's quite a rough surface, so we could see them struggle if it is a dry race.
Yeah. Likewise, struggling team as well. Mikhail, I'm going to throw this one to you. It's always difficult to preview Williams. I don't know what to say about them. A solid 18th and 19th in Japan. I can't see them doing much better than that this weekend. Even the rain will struggle to bail them out, really.
Yeah, you would pretty much have to have a similar race than in Germany, complete crapshoot, and then maybe see one of them get a point. But yeah, I mean, any racetrack pretty much for Williams. I mean, it's an easy review because you could just say P20, P19 if no one, crashes out. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, I guess.
Yeah, I think anything else is a bonus, really. But the only reason you pick up places because other cars retire. That's pretty much it. The only cars they can overtake are the ones that are out of the race.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So that's all the drivers done. So let's go with some predictions then. So, are we good? Let's go with simple yes or no. I think Ruby, you said no to this, but I'll come round to you anyway. Lewis Hamilton's become the sixth driver. Sorry, it's winning his sixth drivers' world championship this weekend. Yes or no, Ruby?
No.
Louis?
No.
Mikhail?
Yeah, I don't think he will.
All right, it's a full house. So Lewis Hamilton will be crowned driver championship champion this weekend, no doubt. But talking about the race, so if you have to pick one driver to win the race, who are you going for, Ruby?
George Russell.
Right, so, I mean, I don't think that's going to come true somehow. Let's a serious prediction. Come on.
Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc. Louis, you said Verstappen or Leclerc. Who are you punting for?
I'm gonna go Verstappen.
Mikhail?
Yeah, I'll go with Verstappen as well. Yeah.
I'm going for Verstappen as well. I'm betting on the rain. I bet on the rain, and I didn't bet on the rain in Japan, but I didn't get the right winner anyway. So the rest of the podium places. It's a tough one. I'm going to go Leclerc second. I'm going to say that man Lewis Hamilton in third. Ruby.
Because I've put Leclerc first, I'm going to say Verstappen and then Vettel if he has a good race.
Oh, solid. Louis?
I'm going to go a little bold and go Vettel second, Hamilton third.
Fair enough. Mikhail?
Yeah, I'll bet heavily on the rain. I'll say Leclerc second and Albon third.
Ooh, Albon with his first podium. I do like that guy, and he deserves a podium, I think, this year for his hard work.
Yeah, he's been doing well so far, so
Yeah,
I think one podium could be coming up.
Well, he's gone 6th, 5th, 4th, so it makes sense if he gets the third in Mexico, wouldn't it? It's just complete the sequence. Bold prediction time. This is always a difficult one. I'm going to say, I'm going to bet on the rain. I'm going to say, I think I said this for Japan, to be fair. I think I was right. I think I said Carlos Sainz for a 5th or higher. I'm going to go again. I'm going to say Carlos Sainz 5th or higher. Ruby.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially if it rains, Carlos Sainz 5th or higher.
Ooh, just one up in me. Louis, you're going for Carlos Sainz for the podium?
No, I'm going to go Kubica to only be lapped once.
To be honest, that is a really bold prediction because I think Bottas got lapped twice last year. I think most of the field got lapped twice because it's such a short lap.
It's a really short lap, so
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Louis, that's a call and a half. If that's right, just Mystic Meg over here. Jeez, Mikhail.
Pray for a safety car like 15 laps ago now.
Safety car start, safety car finish. All right, lead lap.
Yeah,
better.
it works. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my Albon on third is already pretty bold.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I'd say Mercedes is not going to score more than 6 points in total.
Whoa, more than 6?
Yeah.
So you're saying Mercedes will not even finish 7th or higher?
No, yeah, I'll assume one crashes out and the other one suffers from the rain a lot. Yeah.
All right. That is bold calls here. Jeez, I didn't expect that. All right. Anyway, so there is quite a bit of news. There is quite a bit of news outside the actual Mexican GP. Let's go into it. I think it's going to be some interesting opinions here. Me and Ruby were talking about it before the show started. It was announced this week that the Miami Grand Prix will be held from 2021 in Miami, as you'd expect, Miami, Florida. The track layout's been revealed and we've had some artist impressions of it. What are your impressions of it, though, Ruby?
I am not really impressed. It seems like a bit of a mishmash of all of Tilke's favourite aspects of different tracks that he's made and just sort of put them in places where he hopes it will, generate some sort of actual racing. But at the same time, the most recent Tilke tracks haven't really generated great races.
Yeah, and Baku is the only one really, but you look at the circuit for that and you think it's a miracle those races happen. I think it's that chaotic, it kind of gets away with it. But yeah, Herman Tilke again, Louis. I mean, I've said this for years now. I've said this for at least 10 years. We need to look at other people to design these tracks and just have like a competition of other designers going for it. It just seems like a dictatorship of tracks by him. Like, it's just him. He's the one-party state. I think we should have other designers going for circuits in F1. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I looked at the track layout for the first time and was like, what is this? This just looks like every generic track that has come out since. Like, you look at Vietnam, you look at Miami, did he do Sochi?
Yeah, he did. Like, every F1 circuits in Malaysia, every new one. And I think he redesigned loads, even like redesigned Mexico and stuff like that. So he's been the guy for 20 years, and it's an masterpiece understatement to say he's outlived his welcome.
They are really just sort of generic. Well, I know Vietnam's meant to. Well, they've said that it's going to be a great track for action, but I obviously don't see it, and I don't see it for Miami either. I was glad when we went back to Zandvoort because it's like that's just a traditional track that's just left. Going back there, but yeah, I think this one's going to go down like a cup of cold sick. If I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's another question in all this as well. It's whether a country, even as big as the US, warrants 2 races. I mean, this is the first time we'll have 2 races in a country since Spain had it in 2012 with Valencia. And
we all remember how Valencia was.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, looking at the artist impressions, it does remind me of Valencia, genuinely. So, I mean, I don't have much of a positive spin on this, Mikhail, but does America need a second race? Does any country need a second F1 race over Germany that doesn't have any going forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was talking about this with a friend of mine because we were talking about, which track is going to get bumped out because of Miami coming back in. And I don't know, you can correct me if it's wrong, but Austin only has like a deal until 2021, right? So that would only, be a 1 season. That could be wrong, but, that's what we thought. So I don't know, like, I do see that it would make sense to have 2 races in the States, but at the same time, like, I don't know if Miami and Austin are the best pair for that.
No, I mean, I like COTA. I think it's a decent track. But after 2015, when the hurricane hit there were rumblings about them not having enough money because they'd lost so much from people not going. Can you blame them, really? But there has been rumblings about it. So that's a possibility. I mean, if they replace COTA with Miami, I think that'd be a travesty for F1 in America, wouldn't it, Ruby?
Yeah, definitely. COTA, like, I enjoy COTA. It's got, for a Tilke track, I think it's got a lot of, fun aspects to it, including like multi-apex corners, a couple of long straights, and, corners that go from really wide to really thin. But, America is a big place. Maybe it should have more than 1 circuit, but replacing it with Miami, I don't think would be a good idea.
No, I don't think so. I think it'd be a really bad idea. I think it'd turn a lot. I mean, COTA is really popular with the American fans. The attendances there are huge. I mean, there's loads. I mean, there's been so many races in America, and most of them have been terrible. And honestly, Miami kind of reminds me a little bit of Detroit or Phoenix, where the attendances were shocking and the races were awful for the most part. I mean, this is exactly what America, which is what Liberty Media are trying to push. Liberty Media are trying to open that American audience because that's the biggest market that F1 hasn't really tapped into traditionally. But I think this is the absolute last thing they need. What do you think, Louis?
I think... I know America's such a big market, but, they're being absolutely saturated with, like, high-level motorsports if Formula One keeps, like, going to keep dipping their sort of nose in and keep putting more races. They've already got NASCAR, which is, like,
every week
a lot of people absolutely love. You got IndyCar, which is, again, it's a series that you're not exactly going to turn people off and try and get them to watch Formula One, even if it is, just two or 1 race a year. But I think that's one thing that's helped COTA sort of with their attendances recently has been the fact that they always have a big headline act after the race to try and get people to go to it. But they make a show of it there, and I think COTA was sufficient. It's a good track, it promotes good racing, and we've seen some great races there over the last few seasons. If that's not doing the trick and they have to get a second race, well, it's not worth it, is it?
Not really, no. I mean, it's not official. It has to be approved by the local council or whatever the equivalent is in Miami, but I'm sure it will be because it would be a big moneymaker for that part of the world. But yeah, I don't have a lot of hope for this one. I really don't. I mean, I remember years ago when they tried to get a second race in New Jersey, New York, somewhere like that, and it just never happened. This one looks like it's going to happen. But at the same time, I don't see it being a major success because Florida, I don't know if any of you guys have been to Florida, it's sticky as anything. It's like Malaysia or Singapore. It's a horrible location to race in. Why not go back to somewhere like Watkins Glen or somewhere like that, somewhere a lot more accessible, that's just frankly a better circuit, Mikhail?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've been to Orlando once, never to Miami. I think the location, like, I think why Liberty wants to go to Miami is that they see that as a place that they can host a spectacle. So I share the sentiment that I don't think this is going to be a long-term thing. I think they'll, have it for once or twice, and then try to make that as big of a spectacle as possible. Try to, outsource that frame to elsewhere. But I don't see Miami staying in the calendar for too long. And I mean, personally, I would much rather prefer COTA staying there. So. But I think they're just, like, the only way I can justify this is for myself is just viewing it as a marketing trick.
Yeah, basically, I think you're right there. I mean, we've seen this with races in the past. You know, Korea was on the calendar for 4 years, India was on the calendar for 3 years. These massive facilities that have just been left to waste after. It happens quite a bit with F1, and I think we could see history repeating itself there, Ruby.
Yeah, definitely. I saw one of the justifications for a Miami circuit being they held a like F1 experience in Miami, like before Dakota, and there was a massive attendance to that. I'm not really sure what the relative attendance is to all these other events that they've done, but I think they're banking on that interest sparking up and not making this a abandoned circuit a couple of years later. But like you said, there have been a couple of circuits where we've raced at for a couple of years and then just nothing has happened ever since.
Well, that's our takes on Miami. Fair to say we're not a fan of it, but who knows? You never know. It could be another Baku. It could be a very entertaining race. But look, so I don't know. I think someone shared this in the group. I think it was Wayne who shared this in the group about complaints regarding Ferrari's engines, the quality of them. Ferrari again coming under fire because basically people are just saying, oh, well, they've turned an absolute corner since the summer. It seems a bit too convenient for them. What's your take on Louis? Louis? Have you seen it?
I did see it. I had a quick read, and it's all a bit odd, isn't it? It's like the complaint system in Formula One's very strange. Like we already sort of touched on the sort of the Renault and the Racing Point sort of incident. It's just, I think when it comes to all these like complaints, I don't. If it is turned out to be some sort of fault, then I'm surprised that the FIA or someone hasn't picked up on it already. I think it's more of an issue with the FIA than it is with like Formula One. That they should be, regulating these cars more closely than if to not allow these things to happen. Yeah, it's all just a bit strange to me.
It does seem a bit hogwash looking through it now, actually. I mean, basically people are just like, you can't make that big of a gain, but the stages have shown it in the past. You can make massive gains on the competition if you just put the time and effort in. I mean, I don't think there's much danger of Ferrari getting in some serious trouble for this, is there, Mikhail?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I don't know like how much there is basis for the complaint, but I don't think it's gonna be too drastic. Like we've seen these before as well, just complaints on competition getting too far from other teams. So yeah, I don't think this is gonna lead to anything that drastic.
No, I don't think so either. But yeah, an interesting bit of news, something we don't normally see, is that there was a outburst by Lewis Hamilton last week on, I think it was Instagram, on a story, basically going on about how the world has to change to a vegan diet for everyone to be saved and this, that and the other. And everybody's weighed in with their 2 pence here. What do you think, Ruby? I personally just think the guy had a bad night and we shouldn't be giving him as much hate as what he's been receiving. No, generally I do. I just think he's had a bad night. Just took it out on social media. We've all done it.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. I've had bad days and, on Facebook. Yeah, his entire comments can be taken, I think, with a pinch of salt in the sense that, he's basically made his entire life driving cars around for a living and flying private jets and, basically just, living off the oil industry essentially as a byproduct. But another argument that I've seen, like for him having his entire comments, is it takes someone of his position to make a statement in order for this message to come across. You need someone in the industry to be trying to change it in order for the industry itself to change. The industry's not going to change just from outside pressure.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's 2 sides to it, really. I mean, I've seen I think this tweet, I agree with most of this, to be fair. This guy on Twitter, Mark, just his name is @MarkAntro. Thank you for retweeting this. He got a lot of support, I think, as well. It says Lewis Hamilton owns a £25 million private jet, races cars for a living, has a £13 million car collection, owns a £3 million yacht, avoided tax on his jet using tax avoidance scheme, sponsored by Petronas, which are a Malaysian oil and gas company. I won't repeat the last line on there. Fair to say he's not a fan of Lewis Hamilton. I can see where he's coming from, though, Louis, but Lewis Hamilton, in a way, doesn't have a leg to stand on. But like Ruby says, you need somebody important and influential to make a statement and try and change these kind of things. Something's got to be done.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Ruby said. The hypocrisy is definitely there, but people have to speak out about this. We have all these climate change stuff going on now, and it just takes someone with the sort of influence of Lewis Hamilton to say something, get the word out, and maybe people will, think twice, regardless of whether he burns 105 kilograms of fuel every other Sunday. But it's just the way it is, and people can have their beliefs, but for him this is a job. It's not something he does for fun. He relies on this for a living, so it's just the way it is, really.
It came completely out of the blue as well. I just couldn't believe it when I saw it, but so Hamilton definitely have his opinions on that, but he ends up deleting them in the end. I think someone probably gave him a tap on the shoulder, just like, I can't have that. So yeah, it's an interesting one though, because at the end of the day, he just drives the cars. It is his living. It is his job. Yes, he earns countless millions or whatever doing it, but he's successful. He's literally, people have been saying that he's going to be the last council estate working class Formula One driver, because he absolutely did grow up like that. And it's always really known. So maybe as he's getting older now, he's kind of thinking, I need to do something about this for when I retire. I need to sort this out. I mean, what's your take on it, Mikhail? Do you think Hamilton had a right to have a go like he did?
Yeah, I do. I actually saw on Twitter someone trying to defend Hamilton, saying that he sold his jet. Now, whether that's true or not, I didn't look into that any further.
I think he has.
Yeah, but I mean, of course he has the full right for that, and like I don't think all the hate for just you drive petrol engine cars all the time. Like I don't think that's that valid. I think he has the right, and he has a position where he should be speaking out. I mean, before the Japanese Grand Prix, I mean, he was talking about the whale industry in Japan as well, and whether he's going to do activism for that as well. So he's obviously making strides in a more activist department. But yeah, it came out of the blue, and he's going to dial down. But yeah, all credit to him for speaking out.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with that. I think he potentially just had enough and just thought, right, I'm getting my thoughts out, I'm going to see what happens, see what other people think. And then eventually someone said, you got to get rid of that. But yeah, thank you for joining us, everybody. That's the preview for the Mexican Grand Prix. Hopefully we'll have a good race, especially if it's wet. That's always brings the excitement to the races. Get the sprinklers in. That's what Bernie Eccleston wants. I'm all for that. All right, thank you for joining us, you three. We are on every service you want for podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on the videos uploaded to YouTube. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, Pocket Cast. If you want to submit your recommendations, if you think we talk too much, if you don't like my hair or whatever, just say it's fine. If you're hearing too much of Rex in the background, just let me know. That's potentially what you're hearing there. But yes, we've got a specific Reddit for that as well. Just search for new F1 podcast feedback and let us know what you think. Thank you to the three of you for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
No way.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And now let's hope for a good race this weekend. In the Day of the Dead, can Hamilton kill off anybody else's hope of winning the Drivers' Championship this year? We'll find out. We'll see what happens. Thank you for joining us. Keep it tuned to the F1 Chronicle. This has been the Grid Talk podcast. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.